Hey, and welcome back. As you can see, I've got a whole table full of parts here, so you can probably imagine a project is coming. But let me just give you a quick backstory on the stuff here and how I came to the thought of putting together this drum. So, back in the summer, I did a video where I took a children's drum set and tried to make it giggable for my work, primarily playing this small farmer's market jazz trio gig I have. In that project, the biggest investment I made was in these wood hoops. 16 inches, maple. I want to say they were about $35 a piece, so about $70. That was worth more than the entire drum set. And when I went to sell that kit, I ripped these off and put the metal hoops back on so that I could sell that pretty cheap and keep these for a future project down the road. In addition, I got some drum heads from Evan sent to me for that project, and instead of selling them with the kit, I kept them for whatever I would use these hoops for. Now, fast forward a few months later, I'm visiting a friend, Paul, who is kind of like one of my go-to guys when I need like an orphan drum or a part. He lives about an hour from me. He usually has what I need, or if he doesn't, he probably has something more interesting that I would be down to buy anyways. So I would probably never leave his house without one sort of drum in hand. And that's exactly the story of this drum. I went up there looking for a tom for another kit that I'm putting together, and I found this 16 by maybe 10 or 12 inch field drum. It seems like a marching drum. It's made by Premier for all the English people out there. It doesn't have any holes for a snare throw, so it's not just missing one, but my guess is this is some sort of field drum or marching tenor drum. It works perfect because the 16-inch diameter is exactly what I need for these materials here. And then along with that in my back room, I have a bunch of Yamaha Tour Custom bass drum lugs. I believe these are from a donor drum I bought when I was putting together my walnut kit last year. And while I was at Music Go Round a couple months ago, I traded in some gear, took a store credit, couldn't really find anything that I needed there. And I found this set of like a pearl jungle conversion kit. It has this mount for a bass drum pedal that you would mount onto the drum, and then a set of standard spurs. There's no screws for these, so I'll have to find something in my back room or go to the hardware store. And there was also no tom bracket for the actual shell, but luckily I have plenty of those lying around, so that should work fine. In addition, I already have plenty of bass drum claws, and I know I've got a ton of tension rods, so my hope is that I can do this project for $20, which is what I have invested into this drum right here. I haven't got a chance to look inside of here or open it up, so I really have no idea what the shell is made of. I tried to peep through the vent hole here, and I couldn't see through, so I don't know what's going on. It sounds very dry and dead, so we will see. But let me go ahead and clear off a few of these pieces, and let's get this drum stripped down to just the shell. Well, I don't want to jinx it, but that went so smoothly and everything looks really great. The inside of this shell is beautiful. It's like an oil finished maple. It has re-rings already here, very nice bearing edges. I like the depth of this for being like a small gigging bass drum, so I don't want to disrupt anything really with the shell. And luckily, these bridge lugs only had 2 holes to begin with, 1 on either end. Sometimes they have 2 on either end, and that will work great because I can use one of them as a starter hole for these new lugs. And then these Yamaha lugs are very unique in the fact that they have like not a second hole with a threaded insert, but just a guide pin. So I'll just be able to come back and drill like holes halfway through the shell to get these to fit on here now. So I'm really excited about getting this done. Hopefully it's a project I can do in just a few days with minimal amount of work. Now I know what you're thinking. Why is this drum already assembled? After I got done drilling out and attaching all the lug holes, I just brought it downstairs because I wanted to see if everything fit and would tune up nicely. And it does. And I think it looks really good. This is some work I'm very proud of thus far. Before I could get to drilling out the holes for the spurs and the riser, I wanted to also get everything assembled so I could just get a feel for the positioning. Because one factor you have to consider with this riser is, as it's going to attach to a bass drum pedal, there's no horizontal flexibility in the positioning, only vertical. So I need to make sure that the bass drum beater is going to strike the head at mostly a flat angle. I'll show you what I mean. If the bass drum riser is mounted too close to the bearing edge, the beater is going to be pushing forward like this by the time it hits the head, and ideally I want it to be close to perpendicular to the floor, which is actually a lot farther back than I would have intended. So I'm going to mess around with the placement here, and I think what I'm going to try to do is just get the lip of this riser to be pretty much flat with the edge of the hoop here. Now I am probably going to have to go out and chisel out a little bit of the hoop so that I have some clearance for the chain to move, but I think that's okay. I see that on a lot of bass drums that have these sort of riser setups. So we're all reassembled here and everything looks good, except I can't use the pedal because the tip of it is blocked by the hoop. I knew that was gonna happen, but at least now I can kind of trace out how much I need to remove, go upstairs, file it away, and then this drum should be good to bring into the studio and demo for all you guys. So, as you can hear, it sounds pretty good, and it certainly does its job of being a small, compact bass drum. The setup I have here is what I would expect to pair up with a drum like this, and I'm really thinking about a few gigs I have over the next few weeks, mainly with my wedding band, where sometimes we have to play the dance band set in one area of the venue, but then earlier in the day we have to do like cocktail hour jazz trio somewhere else. And that can be problematic for me where I have a drum set up with toms mounted, everything around it, microphones already plugged in and routed, and then I need to like grab a bass drum and snare and just, a couple cymbals and haul it over to a hallway to do the jazz trio set. I will say that on a drum this small, I think the difference between burying the beater and playing off the head is even more pronounced than your standard 22-inch kick drum that's filled with a pillow. I also noticed that this calf tone style head that I have here on the backside, when I had it on the previous drum set I built, it doesn't get a ton of attack to it. So this drum really has a real volume threshold where it can't get above a certain level. You would have to use a microphone if you wanted to use this with some sort of like pop act. Another thing I've noticed just in the few days that I've had this thing set up and kind of messing around with it is that it moves a little bit, and I just don't know if there's a way to minimize that anymore. I think there's always going to be some movement with a drum this small and the force of my leg actually kicking it. When I play it here, you see just a little bit of wobble, but what I noticed was if I have these spurs positioned where the bass drum would be like tilted back towards me just a little bit, which is usually my preference with a normal size bass drum, it actually bounces and wobbles a lot more. When I picked out these drum heads for the last drum I was working on, I chose the EMAD because I think they're really versatile. The ability to change the muffling rings from the larger ring, the smaller ring, and then no ring. But I think on a drum this small, the larger ring is not very useful. I think it muffles it too much. And I will fully admit that when I originally unboxed it and used it, I put in the larger ring, and I think I threw away the smaller ring for the 16-inch head that's here. So I can't try it to compare, but I think what I will do really quick for you is just pull out the muffling ring so you can hear how this drum sounds open. Granted, there's still the slotted ring for the muffling to slide into, but as open as this setup can be. Aside from all the sonic characteristics of this drum, visually, I think it turned out really good. This is some work that I'm very proud of. I'm glad I was able to get the badge back on there, even though it's kind of ironic because the lugs aren't Premier and almost nothing else is, but I think it looks the part. I'm not sure if I'll keep this drum forever, but like I was saying, I have some gigs that I want to use it for right now, and that's enough for me. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this project, so leave it in the comments down below, and until next time, thanks.